welcome all of you that are joining us, excuse me, via Zoom. Thank you for registering. We also want to welcome those of you that are joining us on Facebook Live. We appreciate your attendance. We are the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce. My name is Kevin Riles. I'm your division chair for the Fort Bend Chamber's Business and Professional Division. The Fort Bend Chamber is the only 5-star accredited chamber in the greater Houston region, and we advocate for excellence in Fort Bend County and beyond. The chamber serves both our business partners and our community, and if I do say so myself, they do a really good job of that. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to tell everyone in the audience that we really want this to be interactive. We would really appreciate your questions or comments in the chat, both in Zoom if you're joining us via Zoom, or in the chat for the Facebook Live. We have a page with the Chamber monitoring Facebook Live, so if you have questions or comments, please don't be shy. Everybody's okay to have Twitter fingers today. You can type and ask questions. Just talk to Troy, and he wants that interaction. So please feel free to ask questions and comment. So at this time, I have the privilege of introducing our speaker, Troy Elmore, with Sandler Training. Troy is a graduate of Fort Bend Leadership Class of 2005. I'm 2019. 2019 is probably the best class, followed by 2005. I'm just joking. And a former director of Fort Bend Chamber. He is a managing partner with the Houston office of Sandler Training, which is an internationally recognized sales and sales management training company specializing in Salesforce development. Troy trains and consults for many small to medium-sized businesses as well as individuals. Over the last 17 years, he has been sought out and recognized as a speaker and trainer at many of the associations around Houston as well as the United States, but primarily consults and trains in and around the Houston area. He has been in the sales and sales management for the last 27 years, and he has an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from Texas A&M University with an MBA from the University of Houston. Without further ado, please help me welcome sales trainer extraordinaire, Troy Elmore.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. That's a lot of pressure. Those things. But, and I'm the guy who got the engineering degree who didn't use it. And so, well, great. I'm glad to be here and to welcome everybody who's out there joining us on Facebook Live or on the webinar. So glad to have you guys. But we have a lot to do in a very short amount of time, and so the chat is going to tremendously help make sure that we're staying on the path. And so, this whole thing is selling in a new reality, aka thriving forward is another way to describe it. But whether you want to say we have a new reality, whether you want to talk about what we need to be doing going forward, I'll tell you that the most important thing to think about today as we go through this is a lot of people are looking in the past, looking at what's happened to them in the last 9 months, or even looking at what's happened to them in the last 20 years. And sometimes they try to define where they are today based upon their past life. Okay, and the interesting thing that you always have to know is that your past is not defined by what actually happens, but is defined by your perception of what happened. Okay, and so we have a lot of perceptions about what's happened in the last 9 months, or perceptions about what's happened in our life. And so, but the most important thing is you understand that your past is a perception. It's almost an illusion. And what you should be striving for is thinking about what do I need to be going forward, right? What do I need to be striving for going forward? What do I want my future self, my future business to look like? And then just your past can be a learning thing, but don't let it define you. And so if you want to read more about this, there's a great book called Personality Isn't Permanent by a guy named Ben Hardy. He talks a whole lot about this stuff, but we're gonna take it from a sales perspective today. So we're gonna talk about 3 specific things in the next 50 minutes. We're gonna talk about mindset, and this is all sales, right? Sales related. We're gonna talk about behaviors, and we're gonna talk about techniques. So and I have a bunch of slides. I don't hit every single slide. I may kind of gloss over some and hit some others. Don't get worried. Like, why did he skip over that? You guys should all have a copy of the slides. If you don't have a copy of them, Paige can get them to you. I wanted to make sure that they were available. Some are sort of reference more than anything, but there's a lot to do. So again, the goal is, how do I help you guys get a little bit of nuggets in these certain areas? So when you go forward, when you're out and about, when you're trying to sell, and I know it's a tough environment right now, right? But when you're trying to sell, how can I be more effective? Not that you're not effective now, but how can we get like maybe one little tool here and there to be more effective? And, and again, if you're doing it great, keep doing it. You just take your tools, you put them in your tool chest, and when you need them, you need them. So this is a little harder because it's on chat. But if you guys have questions or you don't agree with something, you're confused on something, I don't chat it out. Say, Troy, I don't know if I agree with that. Can you explain? If I miss it, I have Paige looking at the chat. I have Kevin here looking at the chat. We'll try to get your questions answered as much as possible. So that's really our agenda today. It really is talking about your head, talking about the behaviors, and talking about techniques so that we can thrive going forward. All right, so here's where we get a little bit interactive. And this is me kind of designing this next 50 minutes because I have an agenda. I can talk for hours. This is what I do for a living. And so what I want to do is to ask the question, and this is where you guys would chat me. What are some of the biggest frustrations you have right now when it comes to sales? Like, what are some of the things that are really bugging you? And I made a list to help you out. Okay, so I'm going to stand out of the way for a second if you're watching on this. But, we're hearing all kinds of things. Like, people are saying price has gotten to be a bigger deal now, right? That's one thing they're telling us. Sometimes they're telling us that the sales cycle is getting longer and longer, and it's getting harder to get people to make decisions. We have people telling us, hey, I'm doing bids. I just can't get them closed. I can't get to the right decision maker, or I can't even get people to talk to me right now. How do you get people to even talk to you? Because they're not giving a whole lot of time to anybody, hey, which deals do I work on? Which deals do I not work on? And so if you guys want to quickly, say, hey, Troy, here's the things I want to talk about. That's great. We can spend some time talking about it. If not, I'll go on down the road and I'll talk about everything individually. So anything, this is, if y'all chat, anything in the chat on anything specific here.
Yeah, if there's, again, on Facebook Live, we have someone watching on Facebook Live. If you're watching this and you have some questions as to what's challenging you right now, please feel free to put that there. And then for those of you that are on Zoom, the attendees I see, for you guys there, if you would like, feel comfortable adding that information. Again, what are you struggling with? And I'll add one. Again, I'm a commercial real estate broker by trade. That's what I do for a living. And for us, things kind of came to a halt in March, and phones started ringing again around July or so. But I know in our industry, and maybe just real estate in general, but definitely commercial real estate, some of us are trying to figure out how to navigate the sales cycle in a COVID world, in that some of us are having, I think some of my, especially older practitioners, are used to the classic sales cycle where you get to meet the client, you get to go out, you get to do these things, and they're having to reinvent themselves with the use of technology, and that's a little different. So I've seen that in doing some transactions. I'm a younger guy, so technology is not as big a deal, but I know that that's an issue. So I'll start that off saying that that's one thing, and the confidence of that as well. So
how to navigate the sales cycle a little bit more. Is it about how to get people to have conversations with you and to figure out, how to get them off a dead center, how to get them motivated to do something, or what are you trying to achieve there, Kevin, besides selling?
I think so. A lot of us are used to going to, from lead generation standpoint, because I always believe that really salespeople are lead generators. And if you can generate leads in any market, then you'll always eat. You might have to go on a diet, but you'll always eat. And so traditionally, lead generation in commercial real estate comes from networking events and going out and things of that nature. You can't do that right now. The people that are doing it is very slight. And so, hey, how do I navigate to start my sales cycle, to build my funnel, and I can't go do the normal things that I've done.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in the behavior part. We'll talk about some of the things that we need to start doing, that we can't do this anymore. We have to do this anymore. We have to do this now. And then when we get to the technique part, I'll talk to you a little bit about how to verbalize it or word it in such a way that people are motivated to respond to you. Because I mean, that's right. What activity do I need to be doing? And then how do I get the best chance of getting a response, right? And, look, sales is pretty simple in many ways, right? I'm trying to plunder the business I don't have, and I'm trying to protect the business I do, right? I mean, I'm trying to plunder, I'm trying to go find the business I don't have, and I'm trying to protect the business I do have. And there's a lot of stuff underneath that, but it sounds like yours is, how do I go prospect? How do I prospect? And then how do I get people to respond to me just so I can get this cycle going, right? So it sounds
I think people are struggling with that because their traditional methods are not as available as they were.
100%. We'll talk about that quite a bit. And look, guys, here's the thing. The sales challenges that most people have when it comes to closing bids, when it comes to getting new meetings, when it comes to getting people to make decisions, when it comes to not getting commoditized, when it comes to not being unpaid, they're all the same challenges in post-COVID as pre-COVID. What the difference is it's amplified. It's amplified. Right? It's gotten to the point where they're out on the surface. It's stuff that we see more of. And so because of COVID, because of the oil and gas thing going on here, because of the economy, all these things are amplified. So what does that mean?
So Troy, just so as you get started, we did have one question come up, so I want to make sure you capture that. As Kevin stated, our newer sales reps generate and build their businesses by visiting school buildings, and the schools are currently in the business of protecting the kids. So how do we reach these people in a COVID world?
Well, first, I guess I'm curious on, do they actually see you face to face, or do you have to do virtual, or do you have to do the phone, right? So we have to figure out, if they are seeing people face to face, but they're doing it sort of under special exceptions, or that they're only doing it selectively, then we have to understand what motivates them to want to see us. If they're not seeing us face to face, then we're going to have to do it virtually, or we're going to have to make a phone call. But at the end of the day, they're still busy as can be. And so we have to, and I know they're probably not visiting the building itself, they're visiting somebody in the building, right? Who's in the school building, I suspect, right? Unless they have to look at.
And Jana, you're hearing these questions, so feel free to chime in. That's who asked the questions.
But I think it's all about what do I need to do to get the people who are in the building motivated enough to want to see me, right? Because it used to be where we could just stop by, hey, I'm stopping by, and they go, okay. That just doesn't work anymore. No one's stopping by. It's not something you just go, I'm just going to stop by next Tuesday, and if you're there, you're there. No way. It has to be intentional. And all this stuff. So when we talk about success triangles, so I labeled these success triangles, and I'll answer your question, Kevin. Excuse me. It
was Jana.
Jana. I'll answer your question as we go through this. But the simple answer is we have to be more precise, more strategic, and more intentional about the wording, the verbiage, the narrative that we approach them with, so they'll be motivated to talk to us. And then we have to kind of think in terms of, do I need to change the way I meet with them? Some people are just not, they think, well, there's no way I can sell virtually. But what if you have no choice, right? If you have no choice, you need to learn, right? I know it's uncomfortable, but either that or not eat. But the biggest problem I see with people is not that they're uncomfortable with technology, it's just that they can't get people to give them time, because the people that they're trying to reach out to aren't giving them time like they used to. So that we'll spend a lot of time there. I think I need to spend a lot of time there. I'm going to talk a little bit about attitude. We'll talk about the behaviors, because that's what you're asking about, Kevin, and we'll spend some real time on techniques, because I want people to understand what's going to motivate people to give them time. So good. Thanks for stopping me on that.
Sure.
So let's talk. And this is Sandler terms. Now, this is you'll hear other people say different words, but we think the 3 keys to success in sales and really in life are what we call attitude, behavior, and techniques. So attitude, we'll start with that. Attitude is not positive attitude or negative attitude. Okay, it's not positive attitude or negative attitude. It's mindset. It's all about mindset. If you've read a book, you know what this means. If you've ever read this book by a lady named Carol Dweck, she talks about this mindset. And she talks about how some people have a fixed mindset in terms of the way they think about the world, and some people have a growth mindset. And the way we talk about it is, do you have an outlook or a mindset of possibility or limitation, right? I'll go back, Jana, I'll read your thing in a second. We'll talk about it. All right, do you have an outlook of possibility, or do you have an outlook of limitation? Because they both affect you greatly right now. They both affect you greatly. And so three components of the attitude triangle. And you'll see this, and we'll talk about how this affects you. But one is your belief in yourself. This is all about beliefs. It's all about your mindset. One is your beliefs in yourself, your mindset about yourself. Do I believe in myself enough to be able to do things differently now? Right? If I don't believe in myself, if I don't believe I can do it, that's my first impediment. The second one is, what's my belief about my market? Do I believe that there's enough market to sustain me? The last thing is, what about my organization? Do I believe my organization can thrive in this environment? And if I don't, that's a problem as well. And so here's how this all plays out. And before I actually kind of show you how it plays out, I want to show you one slide, and I forget to show you guys this, but it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's so apropos for right now. It's by Warren Buffett, and what he says is that when the tide goes out, you get to see who's swimming naked. So when the tide goes out, you get to see who's swimming naked. Now, what does that mean? So as a salesperson, I was doing great. Everything was perfect. Life was great. I got, I was making my goals. And then all of a sudden now, COVID hits, oil and gas goes down, and I'm sucking. What does that tell me, if I'm being honest with myself, that maybe I wasn't doing as good a job on? And so sometimes this is the best thing that ever happened to some salespeople, depending upon how they think about it, because they finally get to go, what weakness did this expose? Whether it might be that I was selling more on a nice to have versus really understanding the need to have. Maybe I wasn't calling on the type of people that would, if this stuff happened, that I could protect myself. Maybe I wasn't doing all the right behaviors and I was living on existing accounts. And so I forgot how to prospect, and you could just go down the laundry list, right? And so this has exposed a whole lot of including my own company, looking at that and thinking, how did we get caught there and not there? How did we do this and not this? How can we avoid things going forward? It's lessons learned. And so it's a great quote in terms of, sometimes these things expose the weaknesses that we need to see, that we just never saw because we didn't need to see them, right? All right, so let's talk about beliefs. This is how this affects you. If you're a salesperson, if you have salespeople, right? And so you have beliefs. Now, let's say there's a belief right now about the market, in terms of maybe they think, if I have a belief about, what could be a negative belief I have about my market right now, Kevin? In terms of, nobody's buying, or
nobody's buying. Banks, in my industry, banks are not lending.
Yep.
Nobody wants to be bothered.
Nobody wants to be, these are two good ones, right? So nobody wants to be bothered, nobody's buying. Imagine for a second how this plays out. So I have this belief, like these beliefs are in our head, and they absolutely affect everything in what we do. So if I have a belief that nobody's buying, think about the perception I'm making of the world. That's called a judgment. I'm making judgments, I'm making perceptions of the world based upon this belief. Nobody's buying. So, that's my belief. That I have a perception, like, what's the use of really making calls to people or doing proactive behaviors, because it doesn't really matter. And then, so that's my judgment. And then when it comes down to my actions, what do I do or not do? Well, I don't really try to think about what kind of activity I could do to actually get some of that business, because what's the use? I might actually say, well, I'm doing stuff, but if you're internally, deep down inside that if you really believe nobody was buying, you're not doing a whole lot of the type of activity that you really should be doing. And so from there, it leads to results. And those results are going to say, hey, you're not getting a lot of new opportunities, because you're not doing the type of activity to ever get there. And guess what that does to my belief system, right? It reinforces it. So we call it self-fulfilling, but in many ways, right now, you could call it a doom loop. And many of us are in a doom loop, right? Because of the belief systems. And we believe certain things that maybe not even are true. A lot of salespeople get into a doom loop about price. They think price is the most important thing in the world. Price. And what they do is they prove it true. And this is not something that is just for sales, it's for humans, right? Humans have to validate their belief systems. It's protection, right? That's how they protect themselves. But the mindsets, if you think about beliefs and mindsets are very similar to each other, basically the same. What we have to do proactively is we have to think about what mindsets do we need. This is a picture of my board that was in my training room around May. And what I was doing was every time I had a belief, some sort of belief that I thought I needed to have, in terms of there's a lot of people buying. There's a lot of opportunity. People need us more than ever. I'm receptive and to all good. Every time I had that, I would come write it on my whiteboard so that I would see it every day when I walked in. I was like, the only thing I can control right now is my mindset, and I can control my actions. But if I don't get some control over my mindset, I mean, that's going to be the first thing that's going to mess me up. And so what I want you guys to think about is, and you can chat them, or you can just think about it, is what mindsets, do we need to have? What mindsets do we need to have right now in terms of ourself, in terms of our market, in terms of our organization? And these are some of the mindsets we wrote down. And if you looked at my board, you can look at the slides, you can see a lot of the stuff probably in the red sort of whatever the white erase, the easel marker is. You'll see a lot of things I wrote down. But I challenge you guys, what mindsets do you and your team need to have? And that's the most important thing right now, is to think and literally proactively, journal that. Get that and tell yourself each day. I had to literally write that down. I'm open and receptive to all good every day. That forced me to look for good in the day, because it's really hard when you got news hitting you and you got your supplier saying this and you got your customer saying this. And so think about that. It's an important thing. We won't spend a whole lot more time on that. If you guys want to chat along the way, what's a good mindset? What's a mindset that you think about, you concentrate, and you may even write down that keeps you in the game, right? So if you're chat anything, chat some mindsets, because that's what it's always good to kind of see different mindsets and what people have. I would say people want to see us. They're craving connection, the right type of connection. There's lots of opportunities. There's lots of, people now more than ever, people need value conversations. And you could just see, you could look in the slides and see all of them. Kevin, I don't know if there's anything that you're thinking of is what's a mindset that keeps you going in this kind of tough time?
One, just being a provider for my family is one of the mindsets that I think that you have to take on, that regardless of what's going on, regardless if things are not going well, my responsibility is to my family. So that's one of my motivations. I believe that you must have a why. You must remind yourself of that why all the time. So even on difficult days, pictures. We put pictures on our desk all the time. I think sometimes we do it for decorations, but you need to look at them and realize that, those are the folks that you're working with. So that's one. And then two, I would say that because I'm self-employed, I'm a business owner, just the joy of, I'm an engineer by trade. MBA is very similar. You computer science, computer engineering. And I did well in corporate, but I hated it. So I started my own company, and just the joy and being thankful for that, even though I'm 22 years in, that I have freedom of schedule, which means a lot more work, but I have to remind myself that, hey, you get to choose what you get to do every day. And that's a privilege and a blessing. So.
Oh, and I think that one of your mindsets is it sounds like a whole lot of gratitude as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm grateful for all of life and what it brings me every single day, right? Something good is going to happen in my life today, and I'm grateful for it. That's a mindset. And I would encourage everybody to write those down, or your team to write it down, is what mindsets do I need to have to not just now, but going forward. Success, people always want to know the best technique, and I'll give you some great techniques here and the right behaviors, but success 100% starts between your ears. And you have to intentionally control your mindsets, because if you want to know what normally goes through people's heads, about 80-something%, 85, 86% that's been studied is negative thoughts, negative beliefs. And so, this might sound pretty obvious to everybody, like, oh yeah, I know, I should think that way. But how much do you intentionally write down, think about, what mindsets you need to have each and every day? And there's a good book called Atomic Habits. If you've ever read it before, it talks about how to make sure that you're doing things, just those little things on a daily basis that make the most sense and make the most difference, right? And so that's really added a lot of time.
Yeah, I just read a study, and it talked about mindset and basically being grateful, and those that wrote down the 3 things that they are grateful in the morning, and then also the highs of their day in the evening. from a positivity standpoint, it literally changed the brain chemicals, the endorphins in their head. So that is a very true statement.
Yep. If y'all want to read another book about that, it's called Biology of Belief by a guy named Bruce Lipton. He talks about your beliefs and how they affect everything about your body, and how they affect in how, if you start to change your beliefs, how much it changes on the outside. And so there's a Sandler rule with this, and this is I think where the magic happens. You know, it's funny in sales, we like to sometimes feel good about something before we actually take action. It's almost like I wake up in the morning, I got to make a cold call, and I say, okay, when I feel like it, I'll do it. I don't feel good right now, I'm not going to make any calls. Right? If you wait to feel good about making a cold call, you're never going to do it. I promise you. And people,
Amen.
If you say you love cold calls, I always say, have you ever done it? Have you ever done it? Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm like, really? Do you really love it? Do you tolerate it, or have you ever done it? Because most people don't want to put their hand in a meat grinder every day, you know. But and so if you guys are watching this, it's what's interesting about this whole belief thing is, if you thought about what belief, if I had the opposite belief, if I had this belief that there's a lot of people buying, I just haven't found them, right? That's the opposite belief. And you start thinking about, if I had the opposite belief, what actions would I take? Like, what actions would I do different than I'm doing right now if I had the opposite belief? And then what you do is you let your actions drive your beliefs. You let your don't let your beliefs drive your actions. Let your actions drive your belief. And so what that is when we say in Sandler, don't let the way you feel determine how you act. Let the way you act determine how you feel. Right? And so if you know you're doing the right behaviors each day, and you kind of put your mindset in the right place, then good things are going to happen. I think sometimes we just don't intentionally control our mindset. But that's that. Make sense? All right. Let's do behavior. So behavior it's really made of three things: goals, plan, and action. Goals, plan, and action. What are my goals? What am I attempting to achieve? What's my plan? And what action do I need to take? So here's the thing. You brought this up earlier, Kevin. I used to do all these behaviors when it came to sales that I was so comfortable with. Comfortable networking. I was comfortable, going out and visiting my customers. I was comfortable, to Jana's point, going out there to the school and spending time in their lunch hour, talking to them about, their world and their retirement and things like that. I used to comfortable doing trade shows and all that kind of stuff that was all face to face. All right, well, it's not working anymore. So now I have to do all these new behaviors. And so when we talk about behaviors, we say, well, what kind of behaviors can you do? And so now I have to make cold calls. I have to use LinkedIn messaging. I have to use video conferencing. I have to think in terms of, how can I be more of a thought leader? How can I do webinars? I also need to think about how can I improve my client relationships? And so I've got all these new behaviors. And so the premise still stands that you need to do the right behaviors to get the opportunities. But now they're just different behaviors. And so I have to think about what kind of different behaviors do I need to be doing. And so if I used to not make any cold calls or any LinkedIn messages, now I got to change my goals over to saying, well, now I need to do this many calls a day. I need to do this many messages. I need to shoot for maybe one webinar a month, whatever it is for your world. Everybody's got different things. But here's a different, even more strategic way to think about it. There's an acronym we call this model CARE. And so a CARE model says that you have 4 different types of business. One would be called keep. So keep is all the loyal clients you have right now. You have loyal clients that you don't want to lose. Good business, good margins, fun to work with. You're not going to be able to grow them too much. But they're loyal and you can keep them. Okay. The other type is what we call attain. This is ones that you don't have, right? The ones that you might want to go out and get. And so we sometimes call that the ideal prospect or the ideal client. Okay. These are the ones that you want to go out and get. You also have this thing called recapture, which is, it's the clients that I used to have that maybe I think I can offer something to. Maybe management's changed, maybe things have changed. And I need to go back and I need to start getting some conversations centered around the recapture world. Because there's probably, if you've been in business for a little bit, there are some recaptures. There are some people you don't want back, right? I leave them off that recapture list. The other thing is called expand. So expand is the ones I have now that maybe I would like to grow because they have the capability. So maybe I'm only in one particular unit. I want to go to multiple units. Maybe I'm only in one division. Maybe I'm only selling one product. I want to sell more products to, and those are called the expand accounts. And so how do I do this? How do I think about my world strategically? And here's how, I'll give you a quick example, and I'll draw over here. So for example, if you use this care model, so if you have, let's say you have a $1 million goal, the way you split this up is you say, all right, well, if I have some keep accounts, maybe I have $500,000 in keep accounts, and I need to do what behavior can I do to make sure that $500,000 doesn't go away? Maybe it's I need to go out there and have certain types of conversations. Maybe I need to do some extra service for him. There's lots of different behaviors you can do. And let's go look at the attain. Maybe I need to get new clients. And let's just say this is maybe $150,000. What behaviors do I need to be doing? Let's say I need to be making cold calls. Maybe I need to do social media. Maybe I need to, maybe I need to do webinars. There's all kinds of things you could do there. Recapture, right? So let's say this is roughly 50,000. Right? What kind of emails, what kind of behavior, what kind of stuff do I need to do to reach out to them? And then on the expand, just to add it up to a cool million, let's say this is 300,000. What kind of things do I need to do to expand the business? Maybe I need to get referrals, right? Maybe I need to do some lunch and learn stuff. Maybe I need to do some virtual stuff. If you think about your world this way, it breaks it down and it says specifically, what behaviors can I do specifically in each one of these so I can hit my goal versus just, oh my gosh, I got such a huge goal. I have no idea how I'm gonna get that thing and what I can do. When you break it down like this, it makes life simpler because you can go, I probably get $300,000 or $400,000 if I just actually got some referrals in an existing customer I have right now. Or if that's not going to work, I need to get a lot. Even if my attain goal was going to be 500 because I couldn't do these two, well, at least I know, right? At least I know. And so when it comes to behaviors, think in terms of this care model and then be strategic about what can I do to get conversations? Because that's all you're trying to do, really. You're just trying to get conversations. And so, on expands, it's one of the best ways to do is to get referrals within a company, or you can talk to them about other products and services you have, and you're just trying to get a conversation. Does that help, Kevin? I know you asked that question directly. I don't know if anybody else.
No, it makes complete and total sense. As a matter of fact, and I don't know if Sandler has one, but I switched to a organizer called Win by Noon, and on this organizer, it actually has a checkbox for quality conversations. Right here in tracking how many quality conversations. Now you have to define what a quality conversation is, but right. But that care model definitely. What are the behaviors you're doing to do those things, and it makes you kind of focus. And I needed something tangible to be able to do that, or I needed something tangible to look at it and say it's blank today, so I haven't had any quality conversations.
Right.
So.
Right. No, I know on my whiteboard in our CRM. When I have every opportunity I have where I'm starting an initial conversation and going from there is labeled out KARE. And it's specifically labeled out that way because it helps me think about the goals that we have as a company and how are we going to get there? And then also you get to go back and say, over time, you can say, well, how much, if we look at our business, let's say we have $1 million business and we know that each year we can get 400 or 500 on just doing expand business, then we probably need to be a little bit strategic there. Now, you can also look back what's happened since COVID and go back and look at the business you've had in the last couple of years and say, what have I done a poor job of? What did I not do that put me where I am today? Did I just lean way too much on my keep accounts? Right? And then all of a sudden those went away. Did I not do as good a job on the behavior for the attain accounts? Did I not go back and think about how to expand the business? And now I'm into a really tough situation. That's the swimming naked thing, right? And so the care model helps out. All right.
And just a time check, Troy, we're at 12:37. Just
right. Yeah, 20 minutes left, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. This is just a slide. Y'all can see it if you get the handouts. Just kind of gives you some examples of some things you can do in the care model as far as behavior. Like there's rules here. You can't really, you can't manage the results. You can't manage someone giving you money, but you can manage your behavior, right? And the other thing I tell people is right now, time block everything. If you know that you need to make some calls during a certain time to try to get some more attain type conversations, to get some new quality, to your point, quality conversations, then time block it. From 9 to 10, I'm going to make this many calls to these type of people, but put it on your calendar. Stop hoping it's going to happen. And then realize, then go and I don't know why I didn't get that done. Because if it's on your calendar, it's more likely to happen because you're making an appointment with yourself. And then you can also schedule around that. And that's the way I tell people to do it is if you're not time blocking it, it's not real. It's just not real. It should be like if you were a sales manager and your salespeople said, well, I had a meeting. You're like, well, it wasn't on your calendar in the CRM, so it's not real, right? It's not real. And so make it real, use your calendar, time block it. All right, let's talk about, and so that if you chat or if you're curious about this, the chat would be, what behaviors do you need to be doing differently? So what behaviors do I need to be doing differently? All right, let's talk about techniques. I have 20 minutes left. All right, so
one answer to Jana's, just so they sell retirement savings, and so that is they usually go and make themselves available during lunch so that the faculty and the teachers can swing by their tables. So now they can't do that. So they need to figure out ways to how to even let them know that they exist so they can have those conversations as we were talking about. So just want to tie into what you were talking about.
I think from a behavior perspective, that's a whole lot of well, you could look at it two different ways. You could look at it individual people as an individual attain goal, or you could look at it as I have some people that are signed up for my products and services at the school, so I'm trying to expand it. But overall, if I was in that world, I would probably be spending some time trying to understand leadership, let's say principal at a school, and trying to talk to them about, about what kind of issues or challenges that she thinks the teachers have, so that she's motivated enough to help me get in front of these people, because I can't get in front of them the regular way. So either one, I've got to get the leadership to help me. And they probably say, well, you can't meet with them during lunch, but here's maybe a way you can do it and I'll help you. But that means we have to have a conversation with somebody who can help us, or we individually have to reach out to every one of those teachers and have a conversation with them. But I probably would start high and let that person help me if we haven't already done it. And that would be one of my behavior goals. Because if they think that you're really adding value to those teachers' lives or to that staff's life, they'll help you get in front of them. They'll help you figure out a way to do it. And so that probably needs a longer conversation with Jana, but that would be one of the behaviors I would be trying to do, is to get in front of enough leadership. Again, I just say the principal, my wife works at a school, and get them motivated to want to help me. So, all right.
Thank you.
So let's talk techniques. I'm going to skip past something real quick because from a time perspective, I'm skipping past where we talk about relationships, because what I'm going to talk about actually helps build relationships. The thing I just skipped past is how to connect with people when you first talk to them. And I mean, not connect with people in terms of, not saying only talking about family or only talking about, their weekend and this and that. I think one of the ways you can really connect with people is through empathy, through asking about their world and asking how this is affecting them. We're just not going to spend much time on it. There's a cool tool in the handouts if you want it. And you can take that tool if you want it. You can email me and I'll send it to you. It's about how to improve relationships. Let's talk about one of the most important things that we need to do right now. And I just wrote the word. You can see where it says break patterns. And there's a 180-degree marker. And what that means is we need to act 180 degrees. That's my mechanical engineering term, but opposite of a stereotypical salesperson. And right now we sound like stereotypical salesperson people more than we know, especially in the fear category. Right, when we're full of fear, we tend to act out of desperation, and we sound more like a salesperson. And so here's the best example of that. It's funny. You get on the phone, you're talking to prospects right now, and you might have a little bit of conversation with them, and of course they're a little bit hesitant to do a whole heck of a lot anyway because of the situation. And they say things like, "Well, I mean, why should we consider you?" Or why should we consider you as our, we already have a broker. Why should we consider you? Or we're not really, I don't know. Why should we buy from you? It's some version of that question that we're getting asked a lot now. Right? Why should I even talk to you? And most of the salespeople, if they get asked that question, their mind is like, let me think of all the reasons why I think you should talk right? Because your life will be better, because if you get to, because I'll be there when you need to make a move, and right now it's, or because I have the best quality service, whatever, right? The list. And so we go down and give them all the reasons why. And then what happens is, in your prospect's mind, they're like, oh, you sound like everybody else, right? And it's a pattern. And unfortunately, we make decisions on patterns. And so our brain is so pattern driven that if it hears anything that resembles a stereotypical salesperson, it lumps you into that category, which lumps you into a distrust category. And so we have to learn to do it differently. We have to learn to break the pattern, especially in their brain. So here's the simple answer to that. When someone asks you, why should I buy from you? Why should I use you? What I want you guys to say is, look, I'd love to tell you all the reasons why you should use us. We're really proud of all the things that we do. The reality is that I don't know if you should use us right now. I mean, I think probably the better thing we should do is have some conversation. Let me understand a little bit more about your world, some of the challenges you're having, and then see if those challenges are worth fixing. And if they're not, no big deal. You should stay with who you're using right now. But the reality is, it would be a disservice for me to tell you should. Now, Kevin, you probably heard that. It's on the chat. It's like, what's the break-in pattern? What did I say that literally put that person's head? Like, what did he just say? No.
Yeah.
Did you?
No. What that to me shows is a little bit of empathy, but also transparency. Like, hey, you may not need me, and that builds trust. So it's a technique that I use. Yeah.
And what did your brain do whenever I said, well, I don't know if you should use me?
It schismed. Like, what do you mean I shouldn't use you? Now it's like, well, wait a minute. I want to prove that you may. It may even make me think like, no, yeah.
Right. And I'm not, and there's sort of a, there is some sort of, sometimes a semblance of when you tell someone they can't have something, they really want it. And so there's a piece of that going on, but also there's the other thing that I'm just being disarmingly honest. I'm being transparent.
Right.
And I think what we need right now more than anything is transparency and honesty beyond belief. And that's not trying to sell somebody. It's saying, look, the world's tough right now. You guys have to consider everything you do and make sure there's value. Until I have a conversation with you, I don't know if you should use us. I don't know if you should switch from doing what you're doing right now. It may be the best thing in the world. So let's just have a conversation and let's understand it. And I'll be the first one to tell you shouldn't switch or you shouldn't do anything different. And that's how you start to break patterns. And if so we're not trying to sell as much right now. We're just trying to get conversations. And when we get them, let's not screw them up, right? Let's not screw them up by starting to do sell mode, because then their defenses go up and then they're like, salesperson. And then they're reinforced, it's like 6 foot thick, reinforced steel, concrete with reinforced steel all around them. And we call it a defense wall, right? And so it's 6 foot tall, 6 foot thick. And then they're like, and I don't want that to happen. So we start to break patterns. Now, the other thing that's really important, when you guys are getting, you can't read this very well, but you'll see it in your slides. When you're getting conversations, every conversation needs to be a little bit more precision. And what I mean by precision is, how much time are we going to spend here? And are we both on the same page? What's our agendas? What's going to be important for you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, to have a good meeting? What things do you want to make sure we cover? Here's the things that I'm going to cover. Here's the questions I'm going to ask. Are you okay with it? And then we need to also talk about what outcomes are we shooting for? One of the outcomes may be that we don't have a next step. One of the outcomes, which is fine. We can give them the option to tell us no. The other is that we do have a very specific next step, which we can calendar, because right now I want to use your time. And, I want to make sure that all these conversations are efficient, they're effective, we're using your time appropriately. And I'm using my time appropriately too. And I think a lot of times we can't just willy-nilly the conversations like we used to. Oh, let's just stop by and hang out for an hour or so. We'll just talk. No. If it's a virtual call, here's how long it lasts. So if I'm talking to you, Kevin, I say, Kevin, what's the 3 things you want to make sure we talk about? By the way, which makes you, at least gives you the perception that I care about you. I do, but it just gives you the perception, right? By the way, Kevin, here's the 3 things I want to talk about. Here's the questions I want to ask. Lastly, Kevin, at the end of this call, we decide if we move forward as far as next steps or not. I'm not saying that means we're going to work together, but next steps, if not, no big deal. Let's call it a day. Right? That's, in our world, is setting mutual expectations. It's reducing anxiety, but you've got to do it. You got to do it right now, because we aren't getting that many conversations. And we want to make sure that they're very, very focused, and we want them to be focused as well. So the other thing is that's really important is if you get a conversation, is understanding what motivates people. So it used to be where we sold, we could sell the nice to have. And I got to tell you, the nice to have, it's not as much anymore. People aren't buying features and benefits. They're not buying the nice to haves. They're buying completely need to have. This is a need to have only at the moment. They're spending money only on the need to haves. Now, what do we see? Different people say different things in their world, but when we talk about need to have, we talk about pain. Okay, when you talk about nice to have, we talk that as gain or pleasure. Okay? Most salespeople sell gain or pleasure. Let me tell you how great your life is going to be if you buy our stuff. Whereas I want you guys to focus on, here's the challenges that we typically solve. Here's the things we see. Don't know if you have any. If you do, it might make sense to have a conversation. If you don't, probably not going to have a conversation. And most salespeople don't want to talk about pains that people have because it's an uncomfortable conversation. But right here is the most important number you're ever going to see. And I just say 5x. It's 5 times more motivating to switch because of pain than it is to do something because of gain. If they don't have a problem with their existing broker, if they don't have any problems that they think they're going to have when they move spaces, then why are they going to use you? Why would they switch?
Funny thing about it is I just sold a relatively large apartment complex because early on in the very first conversation, and I didn't do it I don't want to make it seem like I did it on purpose, but I heard the owner say, "I'm just tired of being a landlord." And that was the pain. And so, well, let me help you stop being a landlord. And ended up listing that property and getting it sold. So she self-identified her pain, nice. And I was able to help her solve it. And now I'm about to list another property that she has because she had multiple apartment complexes because she's tired of being a landlord. It wasn't about really making money. Of course, she wanted to, but it was about let's get these things sold so I can stop being a landlord.
Right. Well, now that you've seen that, the best advice I'll give you guys out there, if you're listening, is to think about what problems do you solve for your ideal prospects, right? Think about the attain. What problems do I solve for my ideal prospects, for my ideal decision makers? And then when you go out and talk to them, or you send them an email, or you send them a LinkedIn, or you cold call them, the thing you ask them and use a third-party story is to say, Kevin, look, we talk to a lot of owners every day. I got to tell you, when the owners, the only reason that you'd ever want to consider having a conversation with us would be if you and or your team were struggling getting new meetings. Or maybe you are getting new meetings, but you're struggling getting deals closed. Or quite possibly you're a little bit frustrated because the deals have no margin to them that are getting closed. And lastly, it's taking forever to get them closed and it hurts cash flow. And so unless you're struggling with some of that, or your team's struggling with some of that, it probably doesn't make sense for us to have a conversation. That's called a third-party story. And you instead of saying, well, here's what we do. We're a sales training company. We develop salespeople. We make it awesome. We put process. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And nobody really buys for that, especially right now, because everybody's feeling guilty for spending any amount of money. If they spend it for pain, they never feel guilty. Right? It's like if I bought a new stereo, if I had $1,000 in the bank and I bought a new stereo, I'd have my dad on my shoulder saying, did you really need that? Right? When I was a kid. But if I had $1,000 in the bank and I broke my arm and I went and got a cast and I spent $800, my dad would say, good job, son. Good job. Way to spend that. Provided he didn't have any insurance that could help me, right? I never feel guilty about that. And so that's what we do. We have to find pain and we have to help them just self-discover it. We can't tell them they have pain. That's going to be the secret right now to y'all's prospecting, is doing the right behavior based on your care categories, the right mindset, and then asking the right questions that are based upon challenges that they might have. That's if y'all just did those things, life is going to be better. Doesn't mean every single person is going to have problems, but they're more motivated to want to talk to you in terms of that, and they'll give you time. People always say, well, doctors will never give you time. Doctors they always throw one out, right? You can never talk to a doctor, the people who never give you time. I'm like, that's the best example of someone that I had a doctor client one time. He said, doctors will never give you more than 5 minutes. We started talking about pain in his business, and 2 hours later, he wouldn't let me leave. I'm not saying that I wanted to have a 2-hour meeting, but it makes all the difference in the world. And so there are some examples in the handouts that show some LinkedIn messages that are sent that are very, so here's some of the problems we solve, and you can see the response from it. So I would tell you guys, as you send emails and you send and you send LinkedIn messages or you make cold calls, think about the problems you solve. Think about the problems you solve, because it's so much more motivating for people to spend time with. There's another real quick piece of this. If you can dig down, I'll go back one slide. If you can dig down past the fact that this person's sick of being a landlord, or they're having problems with service from the existing customer, if you can dig into what we call a financial impact, meaning it's costing them money or costing them time, that's huge, because there's your return on investment. If the problem's not costing them a lot of money or costing them a lot of time, the chances of them fixing it are go down. And right now, ROIs mean everything. They mean everything. If you can't get a return on investment for the money you're spending, then why spend it, right? Why spend it? And so here's the thing I'll end on, because I'm supposed to be done here in like 2 minutes. Two things. One is 5 seconds of guts. Right now, everything we're trying to do is 5 seconds of guts. It's not gutsy all day long, every single day. Sometimes your role will change dramatically in 5 seconds of guts. I'm going to talk about pain. I'm going to set up, I'm going to go do opposite things. I'm going to call on people I've never called on. I'm going to make a cold call. I'm going to think about my care. 5 seconds of guts. That's really what it comes down to a lot. I mean, in life, right? And so let's kind of sum it up. 1 minute. Attitude. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself what you need to hear. Don't listen to the negative crap in your head. When it comes to behavior, think about your care model and be intentional. Be intentional. Time block it. Lastly, when it comes to techniques, start to learn how to do things opposite of the way normal salespeople do it. Start to break patterns. Go for pain. Go for conversations. Don't go for sales. Go for conversation. If you ask me what a quality conversation would be, I'd say a quality conversation would be one where they actually started to reveal some at least intellectual surface level pain. That would be a quality conversation versus, hey, how's it going? What was the weekend like? Blah, 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 right? That would be how I would define it. You could define it differently. But the next step assigned to it would be a good quality conversation. I found a little bit of pain and I got a little bit of next step. No, that's in the beginning of the sales cycle, right? A little bit more into it, maybe a little bit different, right? And so that's it. Other than just, if you guys want daily sales tips, doesn't cost you any money, text, I think it's on here, quick tips, I always forget this, to 31996. We also, if you want, you can register for a year's worth of content. That's free. No one's going to spam you. And you can go to this website. If you want to have a conversation with us more about what we do and how we do it, on our website, which is this minus the cell, right here, you can find my email address, my contact information if you want to talk further and just have a conversation. But other than that, I'm good. I'm done. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully this was some value to you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin. So thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. As I make a couple of announcements here, we have a couple minutes. So for those of you that are out there on Facebook Live or in the Zoom, if you want to ask any closing questions or comments to Troy, feel free to begin typing those and doing those. Again, want to thank Troy for a great and informative presentation. For those of us that in sales, sometimes we need to resharpen the saw, as Covey said, and so it was good to have a little sales training this morning as well. And so I encourage all of you to go to iss.sandler.com to find out more about Troy, and also to get those free resources. It's free 99, as my friends say, free 99. So with that being said, I also want to make you aware of an upcoming event. One of our larger events that we do. All of our events are fun, but this is extra fun. On November 9th, we will have the 2020 Fort Bend Chamber Golf Challenge. And it's a golf tournament at Sweetwater Country Club. Encourage all of you to register for that. It's always a fun time. It's always great gifts. For those of you that are not golfers, don't worry about it. Everybody else out there is not either. So if you dig holes like I do and just really just beat the ground, like I do, even though I live in a golf course community, I can't play golf all that well. So, hey, you're no different than me. So we just want to encourage you to come out and have a good time, fellowship, and just meet new people. Talking about sales, that's a great way to start to increase your funnel. What other place do you get a chance to spend 4 hours with someone, but on the golf course? And so I've learned that even though I don't play golf well, I can talk and hold beer like a champion. So that's why I play. So if you're interested in any upcoming webinars, we ask that you go to the fortbendchamber.com. Again, fortbendchamber.com. And just so you know, this particular presentation and all of our previous presentations will be available within the next 24 to 48 hours on the Chamber website just go to under Business and Professional. You'll see a link there. You'll be able to run this back and here's Troy's voice and give him any or learn some things that you might have missed. But again, I would encourage you to reach out to him as well. So I don't see, let me see here, Troy, I don't think we have any additional comments. So, and unless they tell me something on Facebook Live, because I'm not on Facebook Live. So with that, Troy, I guess I'll ask you just extemporaneously here. We have 1 minute left. Anything that I could go do right now when I get off of this webinar? What's the one thing you would encourage me and the folks that are looking to go do to assist us in selling in this environment?
It's a pretty simple thing you can do. Go to. You probably have some loyal clients that you've had before. I would go do a quick survey of some loyal clients that I've had and just go ask them, what problems did I solve for you? What problems did I solve for you? Get them to tell you, here's the top 2 or 3 problems that you solved. Not what I do for you, what problems did I solve for you? Get them to tell you those top 2, 3, 4, or 5 problems, and then take those and then put them into your emails, to your messaging, to your calls going forward, saying, for my other clients, they told me I solved, they were frustrated by this, they were concerned by this, they were worried about this. If that's anything that you have some concern about, it might be worth a conversation. And that's what you use. And the best thing in the world is to get them to tell you, because then it's real, right? And so that's what I would tell you, to go do that. It will take you no time at all, and you'll build that list up, and then you can go to the world and start saying, hey, this is what I've heard other people say. Is this worth a conversation?
Gotcha. All right, guys, you have your homework. So
all right.
go identify your previous clients and ask them, what problems did I solve for you, and start putting that in your message. Thank you for that tangible advice there, Troy. So again, we want to thank you guys, fortbendchamber.com, for our upcoming webinars, and go register for the golf tournament. You'll have fun. Thank you again, Troy.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. See you soon.